Hey folks, welcome to Running Retro. Today we're going to be doing a disassembly and reassembly of an original Nintendo. I'm going to do a series of these. We're going to start with the original NES, and I'll do the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo 64, and then we'll come back and we'll start going through some of the older Sega systems. And if you guys like them and want more, I'll keep doing them. Only thing I don't have available right now is a Wii U, so we should be able to disassemble and reassemble just about everything. But in the meantime, let's get started on this old Nintendo. Obviously, this thing is a little bit beat up. This is the one that it was used and abused by somebody else. I took it, I repaired it. It has a couple cracks in it, but overall, it's still fully functional. The board's good, all that stuff is good, so we're gonna take it apart and just don't pay attention to the quality of the case, because as you can see, there's a crack right here in the case, there's a chip in the corner. So this is the NES that I use because I don't think anyone else would want it, and I don't need anything particularly special. So on the bottom, we've got these 6 screws, so we're going to take those out. And on all the other ones, the screws are proprietary, so you need a special bit. And when we get to the Super Nintendo, I'll show you guys that. But for the Famicom and for the Nintendo, they are actually just Phillips heads. So that's kind of nice. The one downside is they're so deep in these holes that they can be a little bit hard to get out. Like this one's stuck in there a little bit. But the one thing I hate about all of these consoles, that I love the consoles, but they can't all be wonder children, right? And the fact that everything is plastic is really sad. That disturbs me. That screws in there pretty tight. Not the worst. So yeah, when you're screwing these back down, you had to be careful not to strip the screws. And I have a feeling most people who have acquired a modded console, like at a pawn shop or something like that, or a thrift store, that most of the screws have probably been put in too tight. I mean, this case is pretty beat up and it's pretty rough. So when I put this back together, I was not thinking about taking it apart again anytime soon. So I didn't worry about the screws. Alright, there's that one in this corner. There it goes. And here we go. Here's the heart of the NES. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this top shield off. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you look up here, 6 and 7. We're going to take all of those screws out. Actually, I'm going to use a different screwdriver. I have my long screwdriver here with a magnetic tip, specifically for getting down into those hard to reach places. You can do all of this with just those tips. It's not really a problem, but it's kind of nice to be able to have your dedicated screwdriver. Kind of spoils you too. But and then I use iFixit's screwdrivers for the majority of this stuff. So we'll take this heat shielding off. Now you'll notice one thing, all of these screws are the same. So the screws for the case and the screws for the inside on the heat shielding are the same. There are only 2 screws out of all of these that are different, and those are the ones on the cartridge slot. So I'll show you which ones those are when I get to them. Obviously, for the Super Nintendo, it's a little bit easier because some of the case screws are clearly different. But let's turn this around so that it's easier to see what I'm doing back here. Though I guess my hand's in the way anyway, but get the idea. Okay, so now this heat shield's ready to come off. I'm going to just pop it right off. There we go. Heat shield is off. Now, if you look here, there are these 6 screws. These 2 screws are different than all the others. This screw and this screw are long. So when we take this out, you'll see what I'm talking about. I did power this system on without actually being plugged in to discharge any electricity, so that's why I'm not worried about this. So you can see that that screw is just a little bit longer. This is a little bit better view. I'll put it down here on the... I'll put it here so you can see. So you can see that this screw is about that much longer than the other one. So just make sure that when you put it back together that you're thinking about that and you're aware of it. Turn this around again. That screw is going to be a little stubborn, isn't it? All right, now, right here and right here are the last 2 screws holding this into the case. So we're going to unscrew those. These are the ones that I always forget. I don't know why. They're not hard to find, but they're just kind of, they're a little out of the way. Now, we can lift this out. So, we will lift these cords out a little bit. And that's got the NES disassembled from the case. Now, in order to get this out, there are 2 screws underneath here. And what you need to do is unscrew those from the bottom, and then this will slide out, and that'll free it from the board. Here, there's a screw here, there's a screw here. You just unscrew those 2, and those will release from the board. I'm going to take this cartridge slot off. When you've got it off the board like this, this is really easy. It just slides right off. So if you've got pins that you need to straighten, or you've got a pin connector that you need to replace, there's a bottom heat shield here. Now the bottom heat shield we'll get to in just a second. I'll show you why. But if you want to replace your cartridge connector, this is it, and it just slides off. Goes right there. So you can take this out and you can straighten and tighten your pins here and restore your NES if you want to. That's a pretty easy fix. And then when you're done with it, you just take it and you slide it on just like a cartridge. This is a new pin set that I was testing, so it's a little bit tight, but yeah, it shouldn't be too bad to get on there. Now this bottom heat shield, which you can see here, is connected in such a way that it wraps around these. So you want to be careful if you're removing it, and these can be kind of hard to unattach. They go to the front of the console, so they're not too bad. They do take a little bit of finagling, so we'll take those off. I like to use a really small flathead and just get underneath the side pin here. So there's, if you look at it from this angle, right here, there's that little green tab. It's hard to see. Let me lift it up a little bit more to the camera. So you guys can see there's that little green tab there. And if you get a screwdriver underneath it, you can just slowly work that up. You don't want to put stress on the system, on the pins here or the cables. So you want to work it on either side. Use the heat shield a little bit, and then when you've got some leeway there, you can just pop it out like that. And we'll do that for each of these. Be careful when you're working with the heat shield like this too, because you don't want this heat shield to be cutting into these wires. But yeah, so you want to just get underneath it, and just get underneath it. And we've got enough, you can get underneath there and just pop it out. I don't like doing this too many times, because eventually you're going to make a mistake. Now this thing is a big boy, and it does not like to come out. And this heat shield is always in the way, so I try and get my hands on either side of it and just wiggle it back and forth. Just give it a wiggle, and it will eventually release. And then you can take the bottom heat shield off. So there you go. There is your Nintendo board as it was sitting in here. And heat shield off, the connectors disassembled, and there are your connectors. To remove these, again, you just take these off. There are 2 screws right here. Just unscrew those, and these ports will lift out. If you look on the board too, you can see written which controllers, which port these are. So player 1 or player 2. And that's kind of helpful. But remember, when you're putting this back together, that these wires, well, 2 of the 3, are going to have to go through here. That's important. So the first time you do it, when you get to this point, you're probably going to forget to feed those wires through. And you're going to wonder, why did I just do that? And you know what? Join the club. So we'll put this bottom heat shield back on. And that's how it looks with the heat shield on the bottom. Now, as I said, obviously, we need to get that heat shield on and then get this all plugged back in. I always get confused about which way it goes, but it's easy because these 2 ridges go into these 2 slots right here, so that's not the worst. Then the short one will go to the closest. So if you actually remember that it goes like that, this is the short one, so it's going to go here. And try not to. I always flip these upside down too. I don't know why. I am not good with 3D spatial, so. We go. Now that's in, and this will go around. You know what? I did it. As I said, I swapped it up. So this is player 2. This is player 1, and it is labeled down here. So that is just my mistake. But that's a good example of it. Can be kind of easy to get swapped around on that. So if you get swapped around on it, don't worry. Just so pop back out, take your time, don't get frustrated, because the last thing you want to do is tear the cables. So just be patient, and it'll all come back off. Get it all hooked back up. When you're doing this, try to run the wires around the side here. It makes cable management a lot easier, and it means you're not going to crimp one of them or put undue pressure on them. Sometimes they don't wanna go. That's fine. Just set it back down in there gently. Alright. So now we've got that ready to go back in. You'll want to lift this back up and slide this on like that. And one thing that I've noticed is if you've got that slid on, then you're good to go. The way to align these, you can actually push this back pretty far so that it it will go beyond the lines here. If you line these up as much as you can, then it seems to give a much better connection with the Nintendo. I found if you're a little bit like this, you can get the holes to line up a little bit and have it be off center, and you'll have to have the cartridge all the way to the front and be wiggling it. It'll be really, really, really sensitive. So just be aware of that when you're doing this. And when I get to this point, I actually like to put the 2 long screws in, and that way I don't forget that those 2 screws have to go in those slots. That way you're already ready to go. I don't tighten them all the way down, and I'll show you why. Because you're going to move this cartridge slot around a little bit as you're putting this back in. So just put them back in a little loosely. We'll secure it to the case down here. Magnet on this screwdriver is not that great anymore, so it's being a little bit stubborn, but alright, these you can tighten down. So now, there we go. It's already down. We'll get these 6 in. Again, not tightening it down all the way, just getting it positioned. Oh, it felt like it didn't go. There we go. Nope. As I said, somebody had gotten in here before me, and this poor guy was in kind of rough shape, and they did strip out the plastic here. So I do have to be a little bit careful. And you know, when you're doing this, you do want to be careful not to tighten it down so hard that you strip the plastic out. The good thing is at least it is plastic, so it's pretty easy to adjust. Okay, there we go. Well, we're gonna have to really tighten this one down because it is stripped really bad. That's gotten worse. So we'll step that back a little bit. All right, so I line it up. I line it up with the back so that these two edges are completely flush. And when those are flush, then I tighten this down. And I hold my finger in the corner when I'm tightening it down so that it doesn't move. Or if it moves forward, then I can feel it. Now it's more likely to move back because of the way you're screwing it. It puts more tension towards the back. So you should be fine on that. Once you got the two long screws down, tighten the rest of it down. Let's see what this guy will. As I said, this screw hole on mine was messed up when I got it, so it's unfortunate. All right, we will take this, drop it back on. There are little tabs here and here, and one over here, and they will, right there, they'll help you align this. So just look for those, and then be able to tighten these down and just go in a circle. I don't know why I always do that one out of order, but it's just one of those things that for some reason I'm in the habit, so I do. There we go. Alright, that is tightened down. Keep on going around. There's actually a reason I might use my my long screwdriver for this sometimes, because it's got a better magnet on it. And it can make this a little bit easier, but it's still not too bad. Get that. And you may wonder why I've got the microfiber cloth underneath here. I have that because it means that my work surface here doesn't scratch up the case of whatever system I'm working on. Now, this case is already so scratched. It doesn't really matter, but just for the sake of consistency and making sure that I'm being diligent in protecting these systems. Turn this around and get these last two. One thing I'm bad about is forgetting the screws on the RF. I don't do it anymore, but when I first started doing this, I forgot the screws on the RF. So don't forget the screws on the RF out. Alright, so there we've got all of that back together. So we'll just take the lid, pop it back on top, flip it upside down. I always just drop the screws in here, and that way I've got a count and it's ready to go. I don't know why. You can put them in one at a time and leave them out if you want, but that's how I do it. And then we'll fish it. I run the screw backwards a little bit to make sure it's going into the hole smoothly. So turn it counterclockwise, and then you can sort of feel it slip into the hole. You should do that pretty much on all of these screws. And then once these are down, our Nintendo will be back together and functional. And if you went in and did a repair yourself, then go test it and make sure that it is still functional, because you never know until you test it. Sometimes getting onto the heads of the screws can be a little bit annoying. If you've got a really good magnetic head on your screwdriver, then you can just put it onto the screwdriver and fish around until it actually gets in there. Both of the magnetic heads on my screwdrivers right now are they're not the best, so I don't do that. Alright, and that's a disassembly and a reassembly of the original Nintendo. So thanks for joining us here at Running Retro, where we keep retro running. If you like this, click the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell on the way out. We appreciate it. Thanks very much.